So a very good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to another video. And in today's episode, well, we're going to try some of this long exposure fine art photography. So I've come down to the banks of the River Humber, the tide is in, and I'm starting off with an old rusty barge that's broken in two. So let me explain my thought process and what I'm going to try to achieve. So just down here in the River Humber, there is a barge that is broken in two. And the idea here is to take a long exposure of around a minute, and we're going to blend the horizon and the river line and create something where the barge is just floating in air, it would seem. The issues I've got is it's going to require some removal of some of the pier behind it and possibly another little bit of a barge in front of it. It's about the only way I can shoot, because I really don't want to scramble down the rocks down there and risk breaking something. So we're kind of just stuck to this bank here. So let me show you some camera settings and I'll try and show you what I'm going to achieve with it. So first of all, on the front of the lens, there is a polarizing filter rotated, just taking some of the shininess off the water. I also have a 6-stop filter on that. It just allows me to slow the shutter speed down a little bit more. I'm also using an Olympus OM1, or an OM system OM1, which has live ND. So I've also got the live ND 64 turned on. So I've in effect got two 6-stop filters on the front of this, which is slowing the shutter speed down just enough for me to achieve a 1 minute exposure time at ISO 200 and f6.3. So let's start thinking about composition and see what we'll come up with. So this is the composition that I have on the camera. The horizon line is here on the top rule of thirds line. Everything else around here is all River Humber. You can see we've got an old barge just poking in from the left hand side, and there's a pier coming out behind it. But the real subject of the photograph I want it to be just this barge here. So when we get home on the computer, I'll probably just crop half of that away. That's going to remove a lot of the need for removing a lot of this, but we're still going to be left with a little bit of the pier in the background, which is going to have to be cloned out, and hopefully we're going to blend the horizon. It'll create a really seamless kind of image with just this barge floating in mid-air. Alright, so there's no time like the present, so I've got everything set up. I'm around a stop overexposed. I had a little bit of a test shot on using the light meter. The exposed alright, but it just seemed a little bit dark to my eye. So we're shooting overexposed by 1 stop. So going ahead, 60 seconds, f6.3, ISO 200, 2-second timer. Let's go. Let's see what we can create. So here's the photograph now taken on the back of the camera. So 60 seconds, 6.3, ISO 200, ND 64. You can see we've got that long exposure effect around the barge here. So you can see it looks all smoked out. It's as if it's just floating in the river. But the problem is down this left-hand third here. This is what we're going to have to try and remove and try to adjust. So I'm going to go home, jiggle about with this in Photoshop and Lightroom, and hopefully create something that looks really minimalistic and a little bit artsy-fartsy. So here it is. So I will concede that my Photoshop skills are not, and never have been, the best. So what I've done is I've walked a little bit further down the bank, I've thrown a long lens on, and we're going to try again, but we're going to focus on the snapped second half of this barge where it's just poking out. I'm going to zoom quite close in and just get it floating there in the River Humber. Now, today's more of an experiment than anything else. This is the first time I've ever really tried this kind of photography. So if I take one or two images, they're going to look reasonably okay. I'll be somewhat happy with this. It's the kind of photography and the photography style that I'm really drawn to and I really quite like. It's just something I've never really got round to trying myself. Maybe it's because I don't know where the subjects are for doing it. Maybe it's because I don't know how to do it. But today we're putting this into practice and we're just going to see what happens. I'll tell you what, Polarizer has certainly seen better days. There's a couple of scuff marks on there that aren't coming off, or whether it's salt from seawater, I don't know, but there are some marks on there. I really need to have a look at this and clean this thing up. It does get used a lot. Wow, I'll tell you what, it is ruddy freezing today. My fingertips have just about gone numb. It's around about freezing, but there is just ever such a small breeze, and it's really just sapping the heat away from my hands. Anybody else ready for summer? I really am. And it's funny that, because when summer comes around, I'm usually ready for autumn and winter. And I always want the next month, the next season along. You know what I mean? It can be brutal this time of year, especially living alongside the river where the wind really does blow. So let's look at taking this next photograph. So like I've already said, I have thrown the long lens on, so we're going really punched in on this barge. I've got a polarizing filter, a 6-stop filter, and the ND64 turned on, so the same filters as before, 264 filters and a polarizing filter, which is hopefully going to give me another minute long exposure where we can get something really kind of fun looking with this. I'm also not decided yet whether I want to go black and white with these or maybe a little bit of colour in there. There is some colour, some greens, some oranges and some rust on the barge, so I might leave that in there. I'm undecided at the moment though. I don't know. So the weather conditions are actually really quite ideal for this kind of photography today. You see in the sky there's a lot of low cloud about, so that takes all of the harsh contrast and all of the harsh light away from it. It just gives a nice soft subtle background. The tide is in, it's sloshing and washing around the subject, which is what we want for this long exposure kind of look. It's also a very dull day as well, which allows me to quite easily get the shutter speed quite slow, which again is another thing that I'm looking out for with this kind of photography. So here we go. Let me show you the composition and let's take this photograph. So this is the composition that I've chosen, okay? So we have the back end of this snapped barge, just nice and big in the frame here. Obviously we're using the long lens so we can really get punched in. You can see the barge off in the background over there. This dark line over here, this is the horizon line on the video. It's a hazy, foggy day, so the horizon is actually quite blurred out already on the photograph, which is a good thing because it means I have less work to do when it comes to, you know, blending this all together later on. But settings wise, we're at 60 seconds, f7.1. I'm guessing the lights changed a little bit since the last photograph. ISO 200, and up in the corner there, ND64. So let's go ahead using the silent 2-second timer and take this photograph. Alright, so I've just taken that photo, and having seen it on the back of the camera, I've decided just to zoom out a little bit and just give the barge a little bit more breathing room. It looked a little bit too punched in, if that makes any sense. It just needed a little bit more breathing room around it. So we're going to go again. So a stop over expose, f7.1, 60 seconds, ISO 200. Same technique as before basically, only I've zoomed out just a little way, like I say, just to give the barge a little bit more breathing room around the edges. Here's the photograph. So there we go. I'm hoping as kind of proof of concept I was able to pull that off today. If I have, it is a kind of photography that I want to lean into a little bit more. I live near the coast. There's a lot of great subjects around here that I can actually use with this kind of photography. So I'm hoping the 2 photographs that I attempted to take today did actually turn out okay. Only time will tell. So thank you very much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up and a like. It really does help the video out and it helps the channel out and it brings new viewers to see my comment. And drop me a comment down below and let me know what you thought of the photographs that I produced today. I'm always keen to hear feedback on the content that I produce. And if you're new here and you did enjoy the video a little bit more than that, there's a subscribe button down below. You can always press that and you'll see more Micro Four Thirds related nonsense from myself every single week. So that being said, I think it's time to go get back in the car, go home, get warmed up a little bit and crack on with the day. I'll catch you in the next one.